This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. Coming up on the show, we'll speak to a top American businessman, Emil Michael, about how some of the most prestigious universities are letting their students down and why he believes a change is coming. We'll also cross to Washington, D.C. to speak with the Australian's correspondent Adam Crichton on Donald Trump's bombshell interview with GB News. And we'll cross to London to get the latest on the royal family with our commentator, Josh Rom. But first, the Australian government has reinstated funding to UNRWA, the disgraced UN agency that allegedly has deep links to terror. The Albanese government waited just 2 months to reinstate funding to this agency after it was claimed that several of its employees took part in the devastating October 7 attack on Israel. And as we've been reporting here on Sky News, that revelation doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to the agency's alleged connection to terror. According to Israeli intelligence, more than 1,000 UNRWA employees have formal ties to Hamas. There's evidence of the agency spreading anti-Israel messages in schools. And human rights experts have claimed that part of international funding that's supposed to provide aid has led to the creation of terror tunnels. And it appears the Albanese government just isn't interested in taking those warnings seriously. It's now been revealed just 1 day before announcing Australia would be back handing over money to UNRWA. The government was briefed that it wasn't just 12 staff members that allegedly took part in the October 7 attack, it was 15. That's another 3 employees that, according to the latest Israeli intelligence, took part in a massacre that left more than 1,200 people dead and sparked a devastating conflict that's ongoing. And it's hard to look into the reports of what those staff members did. According to intelligence, some assisted in weapons transfers and kidnappings. Now, the Australian newspaper reports that the briefing the government received also detailed the prevalence of Hamas operatives across all divisions of UNRWA's program in Gaza. But what concerns me is the government resumed funding before 2 major reviews into the organisation had even been completed. Penny Wong insists that the best available current advice indicates that UNRWA is not a terrorist organisation and there are existing and additional safeguards in place to protect the Australian taxpayer funding. Well, that's a gamble that the government is willing to take with your taxpayer dollars. One of the biggest questions for the government is what's the point in pausing the funding if they were just going to reinstate it? Was it just all for show? We all want Palestinians to get the humanitarian aid and support that they desperately need. But as many human rights experts have told us here on Sky News, there are other agencies that can do it that are not political.
And we're here to say, if you want to perpetuate Palestinian grievances and refugees for all eternity, that's how you ensure it. We want to put a stop to it. Let's look to transitions.
We have a special guest on Power Hour. Joining us from Miami is one of America's top businessmen. He is the former chief business officer of Uber, where he raised $15 billion in 2 years and led its expansion into international markets. And we're going to hear a bit about his story, but also where leadership is at in the United States. Emil Michael joining us from Miami. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. Great to be here.
Your story is a fascinating one. You moved to America from Egypt when you were just an infant. What are your memories of that time?
My memories of that time, my family's Christian, and there was a Christian migration coming out of Egypt in the 70s. And I grew up speaking Arabic, and I learned English alongside of my parents in the suburbs of New York. And so my memories were sort of trying to learn English when Arabic was my first language, and then going to visit my grandmother and all the family we'd left in Egypt there. And it was pretty extraordinary experience growing up in the U.S. in a very diverse community, but not a lot of Egyptians there, and learning the country and the customs alongside of my family.
Have you seen America change?
Yeah, it's sort of impossible not to have seen the change from the time we came in the early 70s, lived through the Reagan era, and then came into the 2000s, has changed pretty dramatically in so many respects. But I think the core of being free, capitalist, optimistic is still there.
I want to get your thoughts on the situation at the southern border. How do you feel when you see the crisis that is unfolding there?
You know, there's a lot of sadness because the vast majority of the people who are trying to come in to the country are doing it for the right reasons. But at the same time, no country can take an amount of influx into its cities, school systems, health systems without preparation, without a way to integrate them into society. So the notion that we have an uncontrolled border is something that really, it's not even debatable in America. Everyone agrees we have to have a border. There may be some debates on the margin, but it's really a problem.
It is a big problem, and I know it's one that Americans are expressing their concern over. It seems to be a key issue when they're surveyed in the polls. How do you think that the migrant crisis will impact this election in November?
Right now, I believe it's going to be the top issue. Even just the visuals of people coming through the border and some of the crimes that have been committed by folks who've done that are going to be very prominent in this election, and a contrast between the top candidates. So usually the economy is always the top issue. And I would say that for the first time in a long time, immigration is going to be right up there with the economy as the top issue in this election.
I asked you about your upbringing in America and your memories early on as a child, but can you take us through your story? Because I want to get to where leadership's at in America. But first of all, can you tell us about your secret to success and how you got to where you are today, and also your time at Uber?
I was just lucky. I mean, they were lucky and worked hard, but going to a public school in this town called New Rochelle, which was in between the Bronx and Scarsdale, sort of one of the richest communities in America and one of the poorest, and New Rochelle was in the middle. And I went to public school there, so I had quite a diverse set of students with all walks of life and income. It was really a gift in retrospect, and lucky enough to get into Harvard after that as an undergraduate. And then Stanford Law School after that. And I got to Stanford Law School almost at the perfect time for the tech revolution. It was 1998 when I graduated. So Amazon had just started. Google had not been founded yet. And living in California at the time, there was so much excitement and so much focus on the tech industry that I got sucked in. Even though I went to law school, I said, I need to be part of this, this tech industry. And I went to a startup called Tell Me Networks in 1999. It was literally a garage where you open the front door, like you would your garage, and had been there for almost 18 years with a stint in the middle where I worked at the White House for the Secretary of Defense for 2 years during the winding down of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. So I had both a business tech life and then a little bit of public service, which stayed with me forever, having gone to some of these military bases in Afghanistan and Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. And that brought me to Uber. I met Travis, who was the CEO and founder, and it was just a black car company. And I said, Travis, I can't join a black car company for rich people. And so we became friends. And then with the launch of UberX, which was the democratizing part of Uber. That means anyone could drive and anyone could afford to take a ride. That's when I said, Travis, now I need to join. It was the wildest, most important part of my life. And it was an extraordinary outcome. And look at Uber today.
Where is the startup world going now? Would you still encourage people to take a similar path that you did, or are the glory days kind of behind us?
Every time one thinks the glory days are behind you, they come back, and this
Well, I love
artificial
that.
intelligence, the AI revolution is back in its like infancy, and it's creating the new level of excitement. And if you think about it, there was three waves. One was the internet in the early 2000s, the creation of the internet. Then it was the mobile phone and the app stores, which created an ecosystem of companies that could build around a mobile phone. And now we're in an AI and computing revolution. And so, yes, there's a lot of excitement. I always encourage people to consider it relative to being an investment banker or consultant. But it was a little overwrought up till 2021. Everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wanted to be a CEO. Everyone had an idea that they thought was $1 billion idea. And I think we're back into a little bit of normalcy. Where you have to have a good idea, you have to work hard at it, and you have to have good people around you to do it, and you have to prove something.
And is that, I suppose, the key advice that you would give to anyone that is going to pursue a career in a startup, or they've got an idea, or that they want to be the next chief business officer at somewhere like Uber?
Yeah, my advice is don't start a company or join a company because you think it's cool to be in a startup. Join it because you believe in it, the mission. You have an understanding of what it's trying to do, and you're passionate about it because these startups are hard. Staying up all night. When I was at Uber, I ran Uber China, and I was running parts of the company in every time zone. So it wasn't for the weak of heart, and it wasn't always fun. So you really have to love it to really do it for long enough to have a company matter. Nothing works overnight.
What was Uber China like?
Oof. So Chinese relations with the West and with Australia and the UK, New Zealand, and the Four Eyes countries are much different than they were in 2013 and 14. There was a lot more optimism about the emergence of China as a world economic power and its potential openness to Western economic values. So being in China was really optimistic for Uber in 2014 and 15. Hard to imagine Uber or any really big tech company, launching in China the way we did back then. But it was an experience of a lifetime. And there was some unbelievable talent there, and there's so much of it, and there's so many big cities, so there's so much opportunity. So it's a little sad that right now it seems to be sort of devolving from the West in a way, and it's a different environment.
Just to pick up again on your story, you went to Harvard, you went to Stanford. Look, recently we've seen anti-Israel protests erupt on campuses. There seems to be a pretty big focus on identity politics at these institutions. What's your view on what's been unfolding there recently? What do you make of it?
I feel like the administrations of these great universities, historic universities, have let down the students, and they've let down their alumni, because what these places were intended to be, and what I thought it was when I was there, were places to debate ideas openly and politely. And the motto of Harvard is veritas in Latin. It means truth, seeking the truth. So they've become less focused on the truth and more focused on activism. And I don't think that's the purpose of what they are. Are they there to create activists, or there to create leaders? You could be a leader and an activist. You could be a leader and a business person. You could be a leader and an artist. And that's what I remember Harvard wanting to be. And sadly, it seems that they've diverted from those missions.
Are you concerned with the impact it's going to have on the next generation of graduates?
Oh, yes. This is going to be like U.S. higher education at the very elite level, Stanford, UPenn, Harvard, Princeton, is at an inflection point. It's either going to go back to its core values of truth-seeking and creating leaders, or it's going to become a political football like it's been in the last 6-9 months in the U.S. And it's going to, and it's president. There are open jobs as president of Harvard right now. They don't have a president. President of UPenn, president of Stanford. The choices they make are going to, be very important to what happens to the next generation. I think the generation that just went through college didn't get the education they deserved.
Right.
The question is whether the next generation is.
Yeah. And, do you have hope? Can you imagine or can you see there being a shift take place?
I do. Because I actually don't think the students even want it to be that way. I actually believe that most of the students, not all, want it to be a place to trade ideas, to learn things, to become someone different than you were when you started. The alumni certainly want that. The problem is the bureaucracy and the administration in between. And if you look at some of the polling of, the ideologies of the professors that select other professors, the admissions committees that select students, it's all one way on the political spectrum. And that's not a way to create an open, thoughtful university that's raising leaders. So there's really a small entrenched set of people that have to change. Everyone else believes it could change, so I am optimistic.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear optimistic, but it's been pretty crazy what we have seen over the past few months. I want to get your thoughts on leadership in America. We obviously, it looks like it's a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Where do you see it going?
I see it being very unpredictable. So we have 6.5 months until the election, which seems not a lot of time, but so many different things can happen in that time frame within the legal system, within the political system. Still 2 conventions to happen, the Democratic Party and Republican Party convention. But oddly enough, it all comes down to 5 or 6 U.S. states: Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. And you could do the math. They have these electoral maps online where you could say who's going to win what. And last election, there was 70,000 votes in a country of 350 million people that decided essential election, 70,000. So it's going to be on the razor's edge again. And I just hope that the country can stick together through it.
You were reportedly vetted for a cabinet position when Donald Trump was in charge. Are you tempted to go into politics?
When I went to Harvard and Stanford, I always thought that was my mission. I'm going to go into government, and the reason why is because I heard the story from my parents about what growing up in Egypt was like for them, the opportunities they didn't have. And I said, okay, well, I'm so lucky I get to grow up in America. I need to contribute and give back as someone who, helps make government better and makes the country better. Sadly, government service has become a less honored profession than it was, and more of a showboat profession. But I am always looking for ways where I can contribute, and maybe it comes back to that. But I'm definitely going to be somewhere giving back to the country in different ways. I don't know if I'm made for electoral politics, but we'll see. I owe the country back, and I'm committed to giving back.
And how has life been after Uber?
Well, I was, gosh, I was single and 45 when I left Uber. So now I'm married with 2 kids, living in Miami Beach, left San Francisco. So life's been fantastic. And I've been able to spend the last several years investing in new entrepreneurs, working with them to build great companies like Brex and Revolut, GoPuff. And I am working with a bunch of the AI companies now, like Perplexity and Harvey AI. So like helping the next generation of entrepreneurs build things, plus the family has been truly a gift and really great.
Yeah.
Several years.
That must be pretty rewarding, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It's more than I could have hoped for.
Emil Michael, it has been such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on Power Hour all the way from Miami. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too. Thanks for having me on, Gabrielle.
Joining us now from London is royal commentator Josh Rom. Josh, great to speak with you. Hospital administrators are investigating 3 staff members for allegedly trying to access the medical records of the Princess of Wales during her recovery from abdominal surgery back in January. The London clinic has been a go-to hospital for other members of the royal family, including King Charles, who's of course undergoing treatment for cancer. Josh, what's the latest on this?
Well, the latest is that 3 members of staff are believed to be suspended for attempting to access the private medical records of Princess Catherine. Let's be clear here. This is huge. This is a massive security breach. This is not just one of the best hospitals in London, but one of the best private hospitals in the entire country, known for its discreet treatment of members of the royal family. We know that this was also the hospital where His Majesty the King underwent that procedure for that enlarged prostate as well. So although it's not believed that his records were also a part of this of the breach here, we know that the CEO of the hospital has broken his silence, stating that they will take disciplinary measures here. We know that Princess Catherine has been informed of the potential breach here, of this potential private medical record security breach here. This is one of the 2 go-to hospitals in London that I would say, of course, not just the Lindo Wing in Paddington, where Princess Catherine gave birth to all 3 of her children, but also we know that King Edward VII Hospital, another prestigious private hospital, has also been the location where other royals have been treated, such as Princess Anne, such as Her Majesty the Queen, or I should say Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. But this is pretty significant, and it is yet another hurdle, so to speak, for Princess Catherine. This is yet another thing to add to the already long list, the litany of problems that she has been facing in her road to recovery. I mean, I just want to put it out there now. This is getting absolutely ridiculous. The amount of conspiracy theories that we've seen online, people calling into question, even TMZ is calling into question the video of Princess Catherine that they themselves ran on their channel, which is absolutely, it is beyond ridiculous. And actually, you know, I once agree with a certain member of The View, Whoopi Goldberg, who literally, as the other members of the panel delved into conspiracy theories, she literally sat on back and said the points of, we know where she is, the palace have stated where she would be, enough's enough already. And it's very true. The palace have said that she will not be seen until after Easter. They have said that she is at home in Windsor recovering. What more do we need? We've now had, alongside this video, we've now had 2 paparazzi sightings of Princess Catherine, one with her mum on the Windsor estates in a car, the other one in another car with her husband, Prince William, whilst going to an appointment before Prince William attended the Commonwealth service. That is on top of the video. And bearing in mind, okay, there were a litany of problems with the Mother's Day video, but the fact of the matter is, what is not being put into doubt is it is a picture of Princess Catherine smiling with her 3 children. Enough is enough. In the words of the Sun newspaper on their front page, lay off Kate.
You really have to feel for Kate there. She's been the centre of this controversy. She's been the centre of conspiracy theories. And as you say, she's been cited recently. And now she's been the subject to a privacy breach when she's been undergoing abdominal surgery. Certainly been a tough year for her. And we really need to keep the support behind her for when she does come out again and engage in those royal engagements. Let's just take a look at that video that was released by TMZ and The Sun just over the weekend, and it showed Princess Kate shopping with Prince William in Windsor. As you mentioned, the internet remains unconvinced. Josh, when do you think the world is going to calm down?
I mean, the world will only calm down about this, I think. I mean, I hope the news cycle will allow the world to calm down, but I think they will. The only way that I think literally at this point in time, the only way that Princess Catherine can prove to the conspiracy theorists that nothing is going on is if she literally recorded a selfie video or appeared on television going, "I'm okay, please stop." And I'm going to be honest, that's not going to happen because, yes, although the palace may have or may not have handled this whole situation badly, especially when it came to the Mother's Day photo, if they do that, it will make them look like they're bowing down to the mob, to the demand of the mob, when it's very clear. They said, we're not going to be issuing any updates unless they're really significant. She's doing well. She is continuing to recover from her surgery. She is spending time with her family. That's what the palace have said. And if they bow down to the mob and succumb to any demands, it might make them look weak. So although yes, they may have handled this whole situation rather badly, I think it is actually understandable why the palace is taking the approach that they are taking. And it's exactly as I said to you earlier this week, Gabriella. You know, the video, it wasn't shot by a professional photographer. It wasn't even shot by a paparazzi. This was a video that was shot by someone at the Windsor farm shop that then gave the video over to the media. So it was a grainy video. So even if it is as clear as day, but of course it's a blurry video. It's not going to be enough for the conspiracy theorists out there. The only thing that will satisfy their insatiable and quite deranged demand here for information is if Catherine herself either recorded a selfie-like video or appeared on television. And that is not going to happen. I don't think it should happen. Let her recover in peace. Let her spend this time out recovering with her family. We've seen that she's doing well. We've seen that she's out and about. We've seen that she's smiling. After looking at that video on the screen, I am more convinced than ever that it is indeed Princess Catherine. It's time to lay off, really.
Yeah, absolutely well said. Let's speak about King Charles. He greeted 4 British veterans of the Korean War ahead of a palace reception to mark the 70th anniversary of the conflict. The monarch was pictured standing in the 18th century room as he held the audience at Buckingham Palace on Tuesday. Josh, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, there were a number of veterans in the room. We're seeing on screen now the pictures released by Buckingham Palace to show that His Majesty the King, he's up, he's about, he's greeting veterans, he's smiling, he's engaged there. We see a group of 5 men in the room at one point. So he is seeing small groups of people as he's undergoing treatment for cancer. We don't know quite what cancer it is just yet, of course. But this is once again a positive development. We're seeing we're seeing His Majesty King Charles, I should say, up and about, greeting veterans, holding mini receptions. There was a reception held in Buckingham Palace afterwards by Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, and I believe Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, as well afterwards as well, a much bigger reception, which we know that Prince Charles was, that His Majesty King Charles was saddened not to attend. But again, this is a very positive development. We're seeing pictures of him up and about, greeting, mingling, partaking in royal engagements. They might not be the most front-facing, they might not be public in terms of large crowds, but we are seeing him undertaking the business of state. So this is a very good sign, and it just shows His Majesty's devotion to serving the people of not just the United Kingdom but also the Commonwealth. In his role, it shows that same devotion to service that his late mother, her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, showed in what she did. And we know that, bearing in mind, we know that she was working right up until the last days of her life. It's actually been reported by various biographers, even at her bedside when she died, there was a red box waiting for her. So, you know, we're seeing His Majesty the King really showing that true devotion to service as he is undergoing what may just be the biggest battle of his life right now.
And it is brilliant to see him out and about, and we'll, of course, just like we're sending our best wishes to Princess Catherine, sending our best wishes to King Charles as well. Finally, Josh Rom, we've spoken a bit about the media buzz about Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and now there's more information. There's allegedly a photoshopping a second picture. This time it's of the late Queen with her great-grandchildren. What can you tell us about this revelation?
Yeah, so this is a picture of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II with some of her grandchildren and also her great-grandchildren, of course. And we see it's a rather late picture of her later on in life, but Reuters have pointed out that there are at least not 4, as might be highlighted in that photo by the production team, but actually there may be up to 8 alterations that were amended to this photo. So we know that this was a photo of Her late Majesty the Queen, released in 2022 by Princess Catherine and her husband Prince William. It said that this portrait was taken by Princess Catherine as well. And I mean, far from the conspiracy theories that we've seen on the internet, what this actually might show, this might actually show a pattern, not even by the palace, but actually there is a pattern that which stands up Princess Catherine's statement where she apologized for the confusion with the editing of the photograph, the Mother's Day photo, as you can see on screen, but actually the previous photo as well was reportedly taken by her and subsequently released by the palace. So what this does, it shows that there is a pattern that stands with the statement that Princess Catherine, in her capacity as an amateur photographer, may have made some edits to several photographs that she has taken and that the palace have subsequently released, seeming to signify that there is no big conspiracy theory here. There's nothing really under the surface going on. It's simply an amateur photographer undergo at trying to edit and improve her own amateur photographs that she's taken. Lovely photographs with inconsistent edits. And we know that she's an amateur photographer. We're not expecting her to be a professional photographer because she's so busy usually with her royal duties. But this shows a pattern of behavior by the palace. It might pull into question the palace's reputation as a reputable source, and we may wonder going into the future what other photographs may be doctored or may be edited. And I think the palace, there are lessons to be learnt here by the palace, not to edit any photos going into the future, or at least if photos are edited, they need to make it clear that photos may or may not have been doctored. But at the same time, that might make them look slightly unprofessional, that they would want to put out doctored photographs. I mean, we are really living in truly unprecedented times here. We know that Prince William and Prince Charles have wanted, we know that Prince William and King Charles have wanted to not just strip down the monarchy, but modernize the monarchy. We're living in a digital age. They want to have a front-facing monarchy that is fit and adaptable for a modern age, but with that comes other responsibilities that the institution might not have previously taken into account. So I think the palace might really have to take a look at themselves going into the future of how they operate in this modern age.
Absolutely. Well, they can't do this again where they're throwing the Princess of Wales under the bus for her editing. I think the palace has a lot to learn from the controversy that we have seen over the past couple of weeks. Josh Romm, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us here on Power Hour. Great to speak with you.
Great to speak with you too, Gabriella. Thanks so much for having me as always.
Joining us now is the Australian's Washington correspondent, Adam Crichton. Adam, thank you for joining us. GB News host Nigel Farage's exclusive interview with US former President Donald Trump has been dominating the headlines here in Australia and obviously in America as well. During the interview, Trump covered several topics, including his likely election showdown with President Biden, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's dive into a few of the issues that they covered, starting with the border. Donald Trump said that if he's re-elected, he plans to deport all illegal immigrants who cross the US-Mexico border. It's a big claim. Can Donald Trump really do this?
Well, look, almost certainly not. Look, the issue of immigration has been fantastic for Donald Trump. I mean, in terms of surveys in the US, it's now the #1 political issue for most Americans. It's overtaken inflation, and certainly millions of people have crossed the southern border, circle illegally. And so he's very right to complain about it. Now, the question is whether or not he can, bring that down to zero. I mean, that is a practical impossibility, I would say. He's already been president for 4 years. And of course, there was all the chatter about the wall. The wall was never built. Some of it was extended. And look, it's fair to say that there were far fewer crossings under President Trump during, from 2017 to 2021, but they were still in the many hundreds of thousands a year. So he never had a secure border, quote unquote.
Okay, well, let's move on to a different topic. Prince Harry, I should say Donald Trump, reckons that Prince Harry might not last long in the United States if he's re-elected. We know that a Washington think tank is suing the US to release the details of Harry's visa application following drug use revelations in the book Spare. Donald Trump says that Harry deserves no special treatment if it's proven that he lied on his application. Let's take a listen.
If he's lied on his visa form, doesn't the truth need to come out?
We'll have to.
Should he get special privileges that nobody else does?
No, and we'll have to see if they know something about the drugs, and if he lied, they'll have to take appropriate action.
Appropriate action?
Yeah.
Which might mean not staying in America.
I don't know. You'll have to tell me. You just have to tell me.
So, Adam, is Prince Harry getting kicked out?
Well, look, I guess it's possible. I mean, I'm not super familiar with US law on this particular subject, so I don't know what the president himself can do, but I'm sure that he could cause problems. I would be surprised if Harry was kicked out of the US. And of course, Donald Trump loves celebrity and celebrities. And so, I mean, Prince Harry has become a celebrity in part because of his wife. And it would shock me if the Trump administration tried to kick him out. But look, I mean, who knows? I mean, Trump is an unpredictable beast, so it's certainly possible.
We'll wait and see. I know there are quite a few people that are interested to see exactly what he put down on that form, that visa application, but we'll see. Elsewhere in the interview, Trump defended using the word bloodbath. Now, the GOP presidential candidate faced backlash over the weekend for suggesting there would be a bloodbath in the country under a second Joe Biden term, made during a speech in Ohio about the auto industry. Now, while liberal media outlets interpreted this as a threat of violence if he were to lose in November, Trump clarified that his comments were solely about automobiles. Adam, I'm sure you're familiar with that part of the interview. Is this a sign that the US media is really choosing their preferred candidate here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the way that they reacted to his speech, where he used the word bloodbath, was completely ridiculous. By and large, it was very obvious from the speech, if you listen to the whole paragraph, so to speak, that he was talking about the car industry. So of course there was wall-to-wall, stories in the US media saying that he wanted to have a bloodbath, kind of blood on the streets, so to speak, if he was re-elected later this year. That is total nonsense. But I think the reason he uses words like this is because he full well knows that it helps him politically. I mean, he does this all the time. A few months ago, it was vermin, and the media did the same thing. They likened him to Adolf Hitler, which of course was completely ridiculous. And Trump knows that, his supporters know that, and frankly, I think independents know that too, and that's why he does it. So the mainstream media loses its credibility, and of course, when they lose their credibility, it means the more justified stories that they might want to run then lose their force. So look, it was another hysterical example of the media overreacting to things that Trump says. I mean, the Trump derangement syndrome is a thing, I assure you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. And then I know that it's been, the long clip of what Donald Trump said has been shared several times on platforms such as X. So you're right. I think some media outlets really do lose their credibility for things like this. Now, Donald Trump stated that if he was still president, the world wouldn't be in chaos because Putin responds to me. Can Donald Trump negotiate with Putin, or is he really losing, I suppose, some support over these big claims?
Look, I'm very sceptical that he can end that war very quickly. It's ultimately up to Vladimir Putin to end that war, and also Zelensky in Ukraine. They're the two men that are largely responsible for this war. I mean, if Trump wanted to bring about the end to the war more quickly, of course, he could end the US support for Ukraine. As you probably know, there's a bill in Congress now for $60 billion to go to Ukraine. The Republican Party is basically split over it, and that's what has held the bill up in Congress. Trump is opposed to the bill, but the reality is that he's going to, that he's going to pick up the phone, and speak to Vladimir Putin and speak to Zelensky and just, click his fingers and end the war, I think is completely farcical. But of course, I guess we can wait and see.
Former First Lady Melania Trump has been seen publicly with her husband on Tuesday. The pair voted in Florida's Republican ballot together, with the former president joking that he was voting for himself, of course. Now, during the brief appearance, the former First Lady was asked if she would return to her husband's presidential campaign trail, and Melania responded saying, "Stay tuned." So, Adam, I suppose, what can we make of that? We can expect to see her on the campaign trail or see more of her over the next 7 months?
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, it really has been striking how little we've seen of her kind of in the past 6 months. I mean, Trump's been running for president now for well over 12 months. And, I don't think, at least I can't think of a single case where she has been by his side. I mean, maybe right at the start, at the launch perhaps, but since then, certainly not. And, I mean, he's performed very well. I mean, he's come from, being third to being the overwhelming favourite, and I mean, he's actually the favourite in the polls to become the next president, but she still hasn't stood next to him. So I guess one could infer some friction there between the two of them. But as you say, she said this week rather, that she implied, she didn't actually say she was going to join him. She said stay tuned. So we don't quite know what that means. But yeah, she's seemingly going to finally start to help out, which I think will be a huge help to him, actually, because she is a very glamorous woman, and she soaks up a lot of the attention that maybe helps him, because, there's quite often the attention that Trump gets isn't of the best sort, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's already ahead of the polls and we haven't seen a lot of her around. Do you think she will make a big impact and she will really help his campaign if she does kind of step up?
Yeah, look, I think she will help him. I think she's a net plus. I mean, as I say, she's, extremely glamorous woman, former model. Actually, her son just turned 18 this week, Barron Trump. I think he's 7 foot or something. So there's going to be a lot more interest in him now too, now that he's an adult. So there'll be more pictures of the son and her together. Yes, look, I mean, I think she's a very quiet woman. She rarely gives speeches. I mean, she keeps her opinions to herself. We don't really even know politics, really. But yeah, I think she's a striking benefit for Trump on the campaign trail.
Adam Crichton, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us here on Power Hour. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.